a fracture in this bond that had been so close came from.
Just when you thought the royal drama had cooled off, King Charles has unleashed a move so icy, it's sending shockwaves through Buckingham Palace and beyond. In a calculated twist that's equal parts tradition and vengeance, the monarch has drawn a hard line, and Meghan Markle's on the wrong side of it. Behind the palace gates, whispers of betrayal, loyalty, and legacy are reaching a fever pitch. Prince Harry, once the beloved spare, has been put on notice. One move, and the future of royal ties may be forever severed. Why Harry and Meghan still hold their titles. It's been over 4 years since Prince Harry and Meghan Markle stunned the world by stepping back from their senior royal duties. It was January 2020 when the couple officially left behind the rigid formalities of royal life and began carving a new path in sunny California. In their place came palm trees, podcast deals, Netflix cameras, and a freedom many suspected they'd longed for. But here's the twist. Despite the explosive interviews, the tell-all memoir Spare, and their headline-grabbing media ventures, Harry and Meghan are still officially the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Why? That's where things get interesting. Behind palace walls, King Charles III appears to be playing the long game. Now, 76 years old and only recently crowned, the monarch is reportedly wary of stirring up more controversy than necessary. Palace insiders claim he's deliberately keeping his hands off the Sussex titles, not out of mercy or affection, but to avoid a public relations disaster. One royal source put it bluntly. The king fears public backlash. He doesn't want to be seen punishing his own son on a global stage. That doesn't mean this is some touching royal reconciliation. Far from it. Charles's silence isn't forgiveness. It's strategy, a velvet-gloved warning rather than an outright punishment. Think of it as the royal version of I'm not mad, just disappointed, only with centuries of monarchy and global scrutiny hanging in the balance. The truth is, the king is walking a tightrope, trying to balance tradition, family, and a deeply divided public. But the tension isn't just external. Inside the royal household, emotions are boiling just beneath the surface. The relationship between Harry, Meghan, and the rest of the royals is more strained than ever. It's been icy since their bombshell decision in 2020, and each public move, whether it's a Netflix docu-series or a primetime interview, has only deepened the divide.
There was a war against Meghan to suit other people's agendas.
When Harry sat down in 2023 and admitted he might be open to giving up the titles, it sent shockwaves through the monarchy.
I don't see it as cutting at all. My brother and I love each other. I love him deeply. There has been a lot of pain between the two of us, especially the last 6 years. None of anything that I've written and anything I've included is ever intended to hurt my family.
But here's the catch. He can't just hand them back. Royal protocol doesn't work that way.
You'll be on the side of Harry and Meghan and think, wow, they had to put up with a lot and I'm on there.
Titles are woven into the monarchy's legal and symbolic fabric. Removing them takes more than just personal choice. It takes an act of the crown itself. And so King Charles, ever the image-conscious sovereign, has opted to leave things alone. For now. But don't mistake inaction for peace. This is chess, not checkers. As it stands, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex continue to hold on to their titles, an echo of their royal past that still links them to the very institution they distanced themselves from. But for how long? Because inside those ancient walls of Buckingham Palace, something is brewing. The calm you see? That's just the surface. The real storm is still forming. But what if holding onto their royal titles is just part of a bigger plan brewing behind palace walls? Keep watching. How distance and distrust set the stage for King Charles's most personal move yet. While the Duke and Duchess of Sussex still hold their royal titles, for now, The rift that began in 2020 has only deepened with time, distance, and silence. The space between Harry and the royal family, once a matter of geography, has grown into a complex web of emotional disconnects, unhealed wounds, and missed opportunities. And behind the palace gates, those tensions are quietly reshaping the monarchy. From the moment Harry and Meghan announced their decision to step back in January 2020, the hope, at least from their side, was for a hybrid role. Harry envisioned a life where he and Meghan could still serve the crown while pursuing their independent ventures across the Atlantic. But that idea quickly clashed with a monarchy built on absolutes. You're either in or you're out. There's no such thing as part-time royalty. King Charles, leaning on lessons learned during Queen Elizabeth II's reign, believed clarity was essential. Half measures, he feared, would only lead to blurred lines around responsibilities, expectations, and, perhaps most critically, public funding. Yet even as the monarchy sought order, Harry and Meghan's world took a different path.
Was the move about getting away from the UK press, because the press is, is everywhere, or was the move because you weren't getting enough support from the firm?
Their 2021 interview with Oprah Winfrey was more than just a televised moment. It was a cultural earthquake.
I need to do this for my family. This is not a surprise to anybody. It's really sad that it's got to this point, but I've got to do something for my own mental health, for my wife's.
Allegations of racism, neglect, and emotional strain within the royal household painted a stark contrast to the polished image the palace had long upheld.
Look, I was really ashamed to say it at the time, and ashamed to have to admit it to Harry, especially, because I know how much loss he's suffered. But I knew that if I didn't say it, I just didn't want to be alive anymore.
The couple's candor resonated with millions, but it also pierced the heart of the monarchy's carefully curated brand. In his 2023 memoir Spare, Harry peeled back even more layers.
I don't see it as cutting at all. My brother and I love each other. I love him deeply. There has been a lot of pain between the two of us, especially the last 6 years. None of anything that I've written and anything I've included is ever intended to hurt my family.
He spoke of isolation, of feeling like a stranger in his own family, of being physically and emotionally cut off. There was vulnerability, but also frustration, especially toward his father, King Charles, and his brother, Prince William. He spoke longingly of reconciliation, but also of betrayal.
Doing some gaslighting himself, frankly, because the fact is that, here he is like selling out his family for money, essentially, when he's talked so often about the agony of being betrayed.
Meanwhile, in multiple interviews, Harry admitted the weight of choosing exile, even as he tried to protect the family he had built in California. The tension, however, wasn't just internal. The public began to view Meghan Markle through increasingly polarized lenses.
A lot of celebrities do on red carpets. Meghan Markle is a celebrity. She's an actress. She knows about angles. She knows about what makes a good picture. She knows about what's a good story visually. She's smart, and she has used some very smart strategy in her role. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way, to use the knowledge you gleaned in one field and career in another one.
To some, she was a breath of fresh air, a modern, outspoken, biracial woman, unafraid to challenge the monarchy's rigid traditions. To others, particularly in parts of the British press, she was seen as a disruptive influence. Tabloid headlines accused her of dividing the once close bond between Harry and his brother, and of turning the prince against the institution he was born into. Stories, some from anonymous insiders, painted Meghan as someone who clashed with the royal way of doing things. Her warmth, her hugging, her American openness was at odds with the palace's reserved, centuries-old decorum. One rumor even referred to her as having a messiah complex, claiming her charitable ambitions didn't mesh with royal protocol. Whether accurate or not, the stories added fuel to the fire and turned Meghan into both a symbol of progress and a lightning rod for criticism. As the interviews and media appearances kept coming, communication between Harry and his father became increasingly rare, and when it did happen, it was often cold and brief. Behind the scenes, insiders reported that King Charles was hurt and angry, especially as private family matters were aired for the world to dissect. There were whispers that phone calls went unanswered.
I think there's a sort of sense of both disappointment and exasperation at the palace that the couple feel the need to keep going on about how miserable they were in their royal existence. At the same time, the couple...
Or were shut down quickly when conversations turned emotional or critical. Adding to the tension was the limited relationship between the royal family and Harry's children.
He has the sweetest temperament. He's really calm and...
Archie and Lilibet, born in 2019 and 2021 respectively, have spent very little time in the UK.
Since we're calling in.
It's magic. It's pretty amazing, and I mean, I have the two best guys in the world, so I'm really happy.
Their rare visits were often shadowed by disagreements over security arrangements and strained schedules. Some insiders said King Charles longed to see his grandchildren, but didn't know how to make that happen without opening the palace to more controversy. Others believed the king had grown wary, especially of Meghan, whose brand building outside the royal fold raised fresh concerns.
And did huge damage to Harry's relationship with his father and with William. Harry also accused his father of cutting him off financially. We now know several things that were said in that interview were not true.
From podcast ventures to rumored lifestyle projects, Meghan's name remained in headlines. And with each appearance came new speculation about what she might reveal next. To the king, this unpredictability was dangerous. He had already made one dramatic choice, barring Meghan from joining the royal family at Balmoral in September 2022 as Queen Elizabeth lay on her deathbed. That moment wasn't just symbolic. It was a warning. Now, with each passing month and every new controversy, it was clear to those close to the situation that Charles's patience had a limit. As health concerns quietly loomed and his reign entered a delicate phase, the king began to draw firmer lines. The whispers inside palace walls grew louder. The late queen had upheld unity at all costs. But Charles? He was now preparing to do what she never did. A move so decisive, so permanent, it would signal there was no turning back. For Meghan Markle, and possibly for Harry too. A turning point in royal exclusion. The distance between Harry and the rest of the royal family wasn't just measured in miles anymore. It had begun to take shape in decisions that spoke louder than words. And few moments revealed this shift more clearly than the day Queen Elizabeth II passed away. September 8, 2022. What should have been a deeply private, solemn farewell became, instead, a symbolic turning point, a moment when King Charles III quietly drew a boundary that would ripple through the family for years. Harry and Meghan had been in the UK at the time, attending a series of public engagements. When news broke that the Queen's health had worsened at Balmoral Castle in Scotland, it seemed natural that the couple might travel north together. But, behind the scenes, something else was unfolding. According to multiple accounts, including royal biographer Robert Hardman, King Charles made a direct request. Meghan was not to accompany Harry to Balmoral. It was a decision that raised eyebrows and drew quiet gasps. The explanation offered was that Catherine, the Princess of Wales, would also remain behind to care for her children, who had just begun a new school year. But insiders hinted that the two situations were not quite the same. While Kate reportedly chose to stay home, Meghan was explicitly asked not to come, and Harry, already frayed by years of tension, was stunned. In his memoir Spare, published in January 2023, Harry recounted the moment with unfiltered emotion.
I don't see it as cutting at all. My brother and I love each other. I love him deeply. There has been a lot of pain between the two of us, especially the last 6 years. None of anything that I've written and anything I've included is ever intended to.
He described the call with his father, a conversation laced with both sorrow and frustration. Charles told him plainly, Meghan shouldn't come. Harry pushed back, demanding that his wife be treated with respect, but ultimately agreed, only because he was told Kate would not be there either. Still, the sting lingered. For Harry, this wasn't just a logistical request. It was personal. He traveled to Balmoral alone, while other royals coordinated their arrival. Charles, Camilla, and Anne all managed to gather in time. Harry, on the other hand, was left scrambling. He arrived after the Queen had already passed. There was no official transport waiting and no detailed instructions. He learned of her death mid-flight, not from a family member, but from a phone alert shortly after landing. The symbolism of that moment, arriving alone, left out of the family's inner circle, was impossible to miss. To many, that day marked something deeper than grief. It exposed a fracture that was no longer hidden. The Queen had been the one constant in the family, a stabilizing force who, despite personal tensions, had kept the broader royal unit intact. But with her gone, King Charles stepped into a role that required firmer choices, and his handling of Meghan's exclusion suggested a new chapter had begun. Observers now point to Balmoral as more than just a single painful episode. It was a test case. Charles saw firsthand what happened when Meghan was absent during a high-stakes moment. There was less media frenzy, fewer tabloid interpretations of side glances and body language. The family, at least for that day, could mourn without the spectacle. For the king, that clarity may have left a lasting impression. Behind palace walls, conversations reportedly turned cautious and calculated. Meghan had become a figure whose every move was interpreted, analyzed, and politicized. Her continued public presence, from media appearances to business ventures, meant that even private royal events risked becoming public drama. And for a monarchy rooted in control and image, unpredictability was seen as dangerous. Harry, caught in the middle, found himself forced to accept choices he neither liked nor fully understood. His loyalty to Meghan, however unwavering, only deepened his estrangement from the family he once thought unbreakable. In many ways, Balmoral became a metaphor, not just for the Queen's final goodbye, but for the quiet departure of any illusion that things could return to how they once were. Meghan, for her part, has remained publicly silent about the events of that day. No statements, no interviews, no rebuttals. But the silence itself speaks volumes. It suggests a moment so pivotal and painful that there's little more to say. And, for those watching from the outside, the message became clear. Her role in the royal family, never quite stable, had now reached a breaking point. In the wake of Balmoral, King Charles began laying the groundwork for a new kind of monarchy, one in which certain lines would no longer be crossed. Meghan's exclusion that day, though wrapped in courtesy and protocol, hinted at something more permanent. The king, acting not just as a father but as a sovereign, had made a decision that would echo far beyond the gates of Balmoral. And what began as a single act of omission was slowly transforming into a lasting royal precedent. But what truly happened at Balmoral that turned quiet grief into a royal reckoning? Keep watching. This moment changed everything. The family divide beneath the crown. What had started as a subtle distancing at Balmoral began to echo more loudly behind the walls of royal residences. The exclusion of Meghan Markle during Queen Elizabeth II's final hours wasn't just about that moment. It was a visible signal of a much deeper, quieter rupture. As the dust settled and eyes turned toward what the future of the monarchy might look like under King Charles III, more pieces of the puzzle emerged. And they painted a portrait of a fractured family struggling to reconcile duty with personal pain. While the royal press office carefully curated the image of calm continuity, the reality behind closed doors was anything but serene. According to numerous palace aides, biographers, and insiders who dared to speak on background, the tension between Charles, Harry, and Meghan had grown into something nearly unmanageable. The seeds of discontent that were sown during Megxit in early 2020 had blossomed into a thick forest of mistrust. For King Charles, the issue had evolved far beyond a disagreement over roles or protocols. Meghan had come to represent a threat, not just to family unity, but to the very values that upheld the monarchy. Insiders suggested that Charles viewed Meghan as unpredictable, and unpredictability, in royal circles, is nearly synonymous with danger. Her candid interviews, outspoken public appearances, and high-profile projects, like the explosive 2021 Oprah Winfrey interview and the 2022 Netflix docu-series Harry and Meghan, left the palace on edge. Every interaction, every word, every glance risked being transformed into a headline. Discretion has long been the golden thread of the monarchy, but Meghan, with her Hollywood background and fiercely independent voice, was seen by many courtiers as pulling at that thread. The royal institution, built on tradition and silence, had never encountered a figure like her, someone who didn't just endure the storm, but sometimes walked into it willingly. That didn't sit well with Charles. To him, it seemed like each family gathering, each private moment, might one day become public fodder. Behind the facade of royal smiles, a deeper resentment brewed. Those close to Charles believed he had never fully accepted Meghan's role in Harry's decision to leave the firm. While the king acknowledged his son's emotional wounds, he quietly blamed Meghan for accelerating a split that might have otherwise been repaired in time. It was easier, perhaps, to see her as the one who pushed Harry away rather than confront the more complex dynamics of his own parenting and royal rigidity. And Harry? He stood at the crossroads, torn between two worlds that refused to blend. As a father to Archie and Lilibet, Harry longed to raise his children in a space free from the suffocating glare he knew too well. But as a son, he still yearned for connection with his father. Privately, sources say he reached out repeatedly, especially after hearing about Charles's health challenges. Those efforts, however, were often met with cool silence or vague responses. The emotional toll was immense. For Harry, every unanswered call felt like a punishment, not just for him, but for his wife and children too. And when whispers began to surface in early 2024 that Meghan would not be welcome at the eventual state funeral of King Charles, should the day come, it only confirmed what he feared, that their exclusion was no longer temporary, it was becoming official. Observers and royal commentators pointed to this decision as the culmination of years of avoidance, miscommunication, and unresolved hurt. And while the king may have viewed the exclusion as a necessary protection of royal dignity, Harry saw it as yet another rejection, a continuation of the message that Meghan was not, and perhaps never would be, truly welcome. Prince William's position, though rarely spoken aloud, seemed clear to those watching. The new Prince of Wales, ever the image of royal steadiness, reportedly sided with his father. He, too, had experienced the emotional upheaval of Harry's departure, and Meghan had become a flashpoint in their already fragile brotherhood. Attempts to mend that rift often faltered, always circling back to her presence as the perceived wedge. What once were minor disagreements had hardened into deep-rooted mistrust. Meghan's role as an outsider had solidified. She didn't just challenge protocol, she represented a worldview foreign to the royals' careful ecosystem. And in the minds of many within the institution, that made her the simplest target when choosing between reconciliation and preservation. By the time murmurs of King Charles's private instructions began to make their way through the palace corridors, few were surprised. Those who had watched the royal family unravel behind the gilded walls of Windsor and Clarence House knew this was inevitable. For Charles, it was less about spite and more about legacy. The monarchy, already weathering storms of public criticism and change, could not afford another spectacle, not at his funeral. The final blow: a funeral and a family torn. By the time whispers of King Charles III's final wishes began to leak from palace walls, few within royal circles were shocked. It wasn't just another protocol decision. It was a line drawn in ink, echoing years of tension and heartbreak. According to sources close to the matter, one specific request stood out above the rest. Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex, is to be excluded from all official events surrounding the king's eventual funeral. This wasn't speculation. It was a clear directive, quietly embedded in Charles's funeral planning. Documents that, while kept under wraps, are said to reflect the monarch's deep desire to preserve the solemnity of his final chapter. The revelation landed like thunder across media headlines. It was not just about Meghan. It was a signal, a formal, preemptive measure that left little room for interpretation. What made the order even more jarring was that Prince Harry, Charles's own son, had reportedly been warned in advance. It wasn't an afterthought. It was deliberate, a message sent years in the making. The situation carried the unmistakable shadow of Balmoral, September 8, 2022, when Meghan was told to stay away as Queen Elizabeth II lay on her deathbed. That day had left a mark, a moment that turned personal grief into a public spectacle. And it seemed Charles was determined not to let such a scenario repeat itself. Many questioned whether a monarch could truly bar a family member from an event as historically symbolic as a state funeral. But royal insiders confirmed the existence of a legal framework, be it through a will, directive, or other royal instrument, making Charles's wishes not just known, but enforceable. Critics were quick to ask, why Meghan and not Harry? After all, the Duke of Sussex had spoken openly about his struggles with the royal family in his memoir Spare, and through interviews that reached millions. But the monarchy works in symbolism. Harry is still a son of the king, a blood royal, with children who hold titles and a place in the royal line. Cutting Harry out entirely would be unprecedented, perhaps even dangerous for the stability of the crown's image. Meghan, by contrast, has no royal inheritance, no constitutional role, and in the monarchy's eyes, no reason to be involved in a state occasion that commemorates the life and legacy of a sovereign. Her presence, they fear, would invite distraction. Headlines would swirl, critics would pounce, and the moment meant to unify a nation could instead reignite division. For Harry, the impact is personal. Sources say he is torn, still loyal to his father in some buried way, but equally bound to his wife. To walk behind the coffin of his father without Meghan by his side may echo the lonely road he walked at Balmoral. A moment of sorrow wrapped in isolation. Some say he may resist the order. Others believe he'll attend out of duty, swallowing the bitter truth. But whatever his choice, it will be dissected, judged, and remembered. And in either outcome, his presence or his absence, the world will once again see the cracks in a royal family that has struggled for years to hold itself together. But what do you think drove King Charles to ban Meghan Markle from his own funeral? Was it duty, resentment, or something deeper? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe.